about now?
Not yet.
Okay, I can see stuff. I'll just refresh the page. Should we start again, just in case?
Here we go. Yes, we are live. So why don't we just try that from the beginning again?
Yeah, sure.
So we finally managed to figure out how technology works, and we can stream.
Okay. Right, what we'll do is we will just delete this. Apologies if anyone's already seen this before.
So, welcome everybody to the stream on 4th of May. I hope we have a lot of Star Wars fans, but I myself am a Star Trek fan. I'm sure that I'm going to start a bit of war in the comments because of that. But you know what? I do like 4th of May of 4th because at least you get all the good memes coming out of it. So, but today we are going to be focusing on the streaming side of things. So we have myself, Peter, one of the founders of Quix, and we have Steve with us. So Steve, why don't you tell us what we are going to be working on today?
Hi, yeah, and sorry about the delay with everything. I'm sure there'll be a meme about this as well in the weeks to come. So yeah, we're going to be building basically a very simple data processing pipeline. So we're going to be adding, as shown on my screen here, we've got sort of empty boxes for source, transformations, and destinations. We're going to be adding each of those items in, and we're going to be using a Twitter data feed to stream Bitcoin tweets into Quix, into a Quix topic. And then in the middle, in the transformation phase, we're actually going to be deploying a Hugging Face model to do sentiment analysis, to work out, whether the sentiment for Bitcoin is sort of going up or heading down. And then finally, we're going to stream that data out to Snowflake, to a Snowflake database. And if we've got time, which, time's marching on now since we've had a few problems. But if we have time, we're also going to include a Slack destination as well. So without any further ado, I will go ahead and click Add Data Source here, which will take us into the library and will automatically filter the library on source library items. Now we can see here, front and center is our Twitter data source, which is exactly the one we want. But if, for example, we couldn't find the one we want immediately or whatever, we could use the search functionality or the further filtering to kind of narrow down our options. Now, we've got two options once we found our library item. One is to preview the code, and one is to just go ahead and set it up and deploy without looking at the code.
So I saw that some of these files before you started to search for Twitter didn't actually have setup and deploy. So what does that mean?
Yeah, so some of them we have kind of essentially pre-compiled into a kind of a black box, if you like, so that you can set up and deploy immediately without looking at the code. These are what we kind of call connectors. If you did want to, if there's no setup and deploy, it's a couple of extra steps essentially to get the code deployed. Most of the time, if there's no setup and deploy, you're probably going to want to edit the code and look at the code anyway to make sure it's doing the thing that you want it to do.
Great. So let's see how this Twitter is working.
Indeed, yeah. So we're going to go set up and deploy. And we've got a few things that need to be filled in. The only thing that's not filled in is the Twitter bearer token. So I will grab that. Can't remember if it's in my clipboard anymore. One moment, I'm hearing myself somewhere.
So while you're grabbing this token, so how difficult is it to get this Twitter token? Can anybody just sign up and get it immediately, or is there?
Yeah, so it's not immediate. You have to sign up and you have to tell Twitter kind of about your project and what you're doing, and it's a kind of fairly lengthy sign-up process. It doesn't take days or anything, but it'll take you sort of 5 minutes to fill in the form.
Okay.
And then yeah, and then as long as you've answered the question sensibly, you'll get a Twitter developer account. And I think they give you something like 2 million tweets per month, I think. So you can do quite a bit of streaming for that. I mean, the Bitcoin tweets, which we're interested in Bitcoin today, they are very high volume. So you could potentially burn through 2 million fairly quickly. But you know, they're good for a demo because they are high
volume. So as you said, we are going to be piping this into a sentiment analysis, right? A Hugging Face model. So it's actually nice to have a higher volume of data so we can spin those wheels a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'll paste in my bearer token. And then the only other thing to kind of really mention is that we're going to be sending our data to an output topic or a topic called Twitter data. So we just need to kind of bear that in mind for the later stages, because obviously we're going to want to consume in the transformation stage, in the Hugging Face model, we are going to want to consume data that is going into that Twitter data topic. So I'll click deploy now, and basically this will now deploy this pre-built Twitter connector. I think because we've had a couple of false starts at this, the topic is already set up and ready to go. So that means we've got quite a quick deployment.
Okay. And then, I already saw some tweets getting written.
Yeah, at the bottom there, we saw a quick view of the log there, but if we click on the tile, we can see the log again. And yeah, we can see basically it's saying it's writing tweets, and that's the tweet ID, which doesn't really mean a lot to us right now, but we at least know that it appears to be working. We can see some data flowing in the topic, kind of mini topic view here. And we can also see some CPU and memory being consumed. So it's all kind of gives us a general warm, fuzzy feeling that it's all alive.
Yeah, it's all working, and it's not actually using a lot of resources from what we can see.
No, it's very lightweight, this one, so it's really good.
That's quite nice. So we have this data view, right?
Yeah, we can
show that off a little bit.
Yeah, we can go ahead and look at the data tab. And what that is basically for is so that you can look at your data and you can just basically get a rough idea of what your data is. So I've clicked on a row here, and we can see here that we've got basically string values, which are the tweet ID and the actual text of the tweet. So we can look and we can see that we've got people talking very likely about Bitcoin. So yeah, we can see that it's basically alive and doing what it should do, and sending data to the topic.
Amazing. So next step. We have the sentiment analysis, right? So I see that nice big button over there in the lineage view.
In here, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got several options really. We can head back to the home page and click the middle tile that we saw before, or we can actually click this add new button right from here, you know, so we can carry on building up our pipeline. And we will do that. And so things that we can basically tack on to some source data, we can either use transformations or destinations. So the platform has pre-selected those for us. As I mentioned before, we can do sort of searching, filtering. I'm going to untick destinations because at the moment I'm not interested in those. And I am interested in this Hugging Face model down here. So again, I'll just search, and that brings it up and shows us that's the only Hugging Face model that we've got. Again, it's a connector style deployment, so we can just go ahead and click set up and deploy. Again, this needs fairly minimal interaction. We could just deploy it as is.
I see that it automatically picked up the input. You didn't even have to configure.
Yeah, so that we've only got one topic available in our workspace at the moment, which is the Twitter data. If we had more than one topic, we'd have to go in there and choose our topic.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. What we can do, we can configure here our output topic. I'm just going to stick with Hugging Face output, but you can basically put anything you like in there as long as the words are separated by a hyphen and not an underscore, which is what I usually try and use. You can enter, if you've got a different Hugging Face model you want to use, you can change this, and you need to go over to the Hugging Face model website to find different models. This is pre-configured to use this particular model. And the column name that we're going to be performing analysis on is the text column, which is what we're receiving into the Twitter data feed. It's the tweet text, essentially. So yeah, I'll go ahead and deploy that in the same way as we did before. And again, it will simply deploy our precompiled Hugging Face model.
And the previous screen that we showcased, the data view, is also pretty good to figure out what parameter you're actually trying to use, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you weren't familiar with the source data, you could then go and have a look at the source data and figure out which how to configure your downstream
and
services.
You also have the option of persisting it, right? So save it into a database, but you might not actually want to do that because this is just transient data. You don't need to save it. You just want to work with it.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, we're working with the Twitter data in real time. We don't need to persist it. You could persist it temporarily while you kind of build your code or build your model or build what it is you're building, and then turn off persistence to save some resources.
It's totally fine to turn it on for like a day or something. Maybe create your machine learning model on that historical data, and then once you're done with it, just get rid of it, because Quix is, while it can provide you persistence, it's designed around in-memory streaming, not necessarily serving as a database, right?
Yeah, indeed, absolutely. Yeah, we're mainly about the streaming data, while we've got additional kind of things around the edges to help facilitate that. Yeah. So once again, we can kind of dip into this transformation tile, and we can see there that we've got stuff coming through. We can just about see it flashing past. We've got negative and positive appearing in the middle here. It's kind of hard to see because it's going so quick.
Again, maybe the data view could be useful because I believe it can give you the output also.
Yeah, indeed. So as you say, in the data view, we can choose either topic. So we've got our two topics displayed on the left here, and we can actually choose the Hugging Face output there. And then once some data's come in, we can click on a row. And as you can see down here, we've got negative sentiment on that particular row and maybe positive sentiment on that particular row. And we're also maintaining a sentiment score there. So that will, you can graph that. I could probably even show the live preview for this. If I go to the topic page, we can then explore the Hugging Face model. Click on this item, which is the stream ID, and then we can tick sentiment score, and we should at some point get the sentiment score coming up. And of course, I've gone off the script of the demo, so it's not going to work. But we'll just we'll take that one away and figure out why that's not working.
Yeah, you can probably still check the original, the Twitter source, and see if that is giving you the details. it's entirely possible that you're receiving older tweets at this moment that are just outside the window that you're looking at.
Yeah, because that's a live window up to the moment. So
currently that live window is limited to show you right now, not what the leading edge is, which we are possibly going to introduce in the near future. But right now, it's what's happening right now at this moment and nowhere else.
Indeed. So what we're going to do next is we said we would stream our data to a Snowflake database. So to get started with that, what we need to do is actually go to our Snowflake dashboard. So you need to have created a Snowflake account, which again is also free for a trial period. I've got 56 days left in my trial.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to move us out of the way and basically create a database for this demo. So we'll call this the live stream demo.
Okay. And you will have to copy some credentials, right? So I guess we will say goodbye for this window for a little bit while you copy these credentials.
I've got those.
Okay, you got it
those
already.
Actually,
in
yeah.
that
So I
case.
can. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So basically, I've created the live stream demo database, and if we just drill into the tables node on their tree view, you can see basically no tables at the moment. So nothing up my sleeves, no tricks or anything. And then if we go back into Quix, we can now click our destination on the kind of destinations section here. And we've got the Snowflake destination is in the middle. So we can, again, click Set Up and Deploy because this is another precompiled connector. And now this needs sort of a few more details, but don't kind of be daunted by it. It's all kind of pretty simple stuff, really. We'll go through each item. We've got the topic name. Now we could stream the live Twitter data straight into Snowflake, but we're more interested in this scenario, in this pipeline we're building of the kind of sentiment analysis, which is going into the Hugging Face output.
And there's nothing actually preventing us from persisting both of them.
Absolutely, we can do that, to different databases. And then we could compare or, run another model to kind of, as you said before, train the analysis model and do things like that. Yeah, that's perfectly doable. So the other things we need are the Snowflake locator and region. Now, as it says here in the kind of the help text for the connector, this is the locator of the account, and it's found in the URL in the Snowflake dashboard. So that is this tab, and so this is the kind of what they call the locator, which is kind of like an account ID. So I can put that in there, and whoops, I'll just make that a bit smaller, and then I can grab the Azure region that my Snowflake database lives in, and that can go in there. Lastly, we needed the database name, live stream demo. Yeah, I'd already forgotten. Live stream demo. So then we just need my username. I think is that. I'll just double check. It should say my username here somewhere. That's not blanked out, so yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right. We'll soon find out if it's not.
Exactly. We should be able to see it, right?
So we will click deploy, and then all being well, we'll be connected. If not, you'll get a message down here which will tell you what the problem is.
Well, it does say it's connected, and it said something about tables and stuff.
Yeah, it did say something about tables.
It's also running. So
it is. So let's Go on, Peter. Sorry.
Maybe it's worth checking out both the logs, what
Yeah.
it's saying.
Yeah, let's check out the logs. And yeah, it's sure enough, it is doing something. It's saying things like saved 6 params. And yeah, it certainly seems to be working. It doesn't seem to be any errors there. So yeah, let's check out the actual Snowflake dashboard. And I think I've got a refresh here somewhere.
Yeah, I think so. It doesn't refresh.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, so we've got a whole bunch of tables. Basically, we've got the event values and the parameter values, and then all of the kind of metadata around the streams or the stream. In this case, I think we should only have, the one stream, which we started at roughly 2:40 UK time, and which topic is involved in that stream. I know that we haven't got any event values for the Twitter, the Hugging Face output, but we do, or we should have parameter values.
Yeah, I believe we are using parameters for that.
So I can basically do this data preview, and yeah, there we go. So we've got, on the right-hand side, we've got our kind of label for the sentiment and the actual sentiment score, which, as you can see, is changing.
So as you could previously see, the sentiment analysis model, the transformation that we used is a pre-built version of the code. But in case you're not happy, for example, now, if you look at this table, you see that it's basically spitting out the sentiment value and whether it's positive or negative, but you don't see anything like actually which tweet ID it belongs to. If you wish to modify it, you can, because any of the library items that you see in the library actually come with their own source code. So if you wish to output also in this scenario the tweet ID, then you can modify the code and deploy it and update the running code without having to write it from scratch.
Yeah, indeed. Basically, the connectors give you, and the library items give you, an excellent starting point, don't they? And then you can go on from there and change them to heart's content.
Absolutely. There are some cases where it's actually giving you everything you want out of box. For example, the case of Snowflake, it's extremely likely that it already does pretty much everything you want it to do, unless you're not happy with the schema, in which case you could update the code. But yeah, there are definitely samples in the library which are supposed to just guide you how to achieve something. So not everything is done. Sometimes it's just a sample that we provide.
Indeed. So what's the time? We've got sort of about 10 or 15 minutes.
Yep.
Should we
I was promised some Slack notifications. So why don't we get going with that?
Yeah, so basically we can have as many destinations, or indeed as many, of all of these things as we want. We could add another source in. We could source different tweets, or we could source some RSS feeds, whatever we want to do, really. So in this case, we're going to add another destination. And again, right at the top there is the Slack notification destination. So once again, it's a precompiled connector. So we don't have to look at the code. So we are going to just deploy it as is. And I think, knowing how this connector works, we might actually be in the scenario where once we see all of the tweets coming in, we might think we will actually modify that code and change it to meet our needs a bit better. But for the sake of the demo, we'll just deploy what we have.
I'm already looking forward to this swarm of messages, because we are going to be listening to the PTC output, right? Which does have quite a lot of messages.
Yeah, we're going to be listening to. Well, should we do the Hugging Face, or do you want the Twitter data?
It doesn't make much difference in terms of number of messages.
No,
because I believe it's 1-to-1.
Yeah.
But Hugging Face should be at least smaller messages in size. So
yeah, maybe.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm already a bit fearful for my channel.
Yeah, so what we'll do there is select the Hugging Face output topic as the input for this service. And then we need to paste in our webhook URL, which is our Slack webhook, which will send these messages to our Slack channel. Again, we simply click deploy, wait for the deployment. We don't have any topic to create because that was already created. And what I will do is find the channel.
There we go.
Oh, there we
I
go.
can see it already.
Okay, so I will bring the channel into the screen. And as you can see, I am receiving quite a few messages. And you can see the sentiment there is negative, positive,
Yeah,
and whatnot.
So, I'm sure that many of you in the viewers already know how Kafka works, but basically, the reason why we see some of the older messages is because Kafka has a persistence, which I believe by default for the free tier is something like 12 hours or something along that line. So because this new stream Slack notification is trying to read from the topic, and I believe this specific sample uses the oldest messages as the starting point. It's basically just sent a lot of messages because it was catching up with the messages that were already in the topic. And now you can see that it actually slowed down. It's only sending a message every now and then because it reached the leading edge where it just receives a message whenever Twitter sends us a message.
Indeed, yeah. And as you were saying before, if you wanted to modify what was going into the Snowflake connector, you can very similarly modify what's going into the Slack notifications. So again, at the moment, we don't have any indication which tweet has got negative or positive sentiment. And so you could, for example, put a link to the tweet so that people can get straight out there onto Twitter and check out what's being discussed, or have the tweet ID or some other identifying information, or any other analysis. Say you deployed another transformation to do something else. You could have the output of that in your tweets.
Exactly.
In your Slack notifications.
I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, Kirsten and I were doing a Reddit scraper from iBleach, and I wasn't too keen on how the current Slack notification from the library just basically dumps the incoming data as is without any kind of formatting. So I basically got the library item, created a project out of it instead of a deployment, and tweaked it a little bit so it only sent the short links of each tweet instead of that quite machine-looking time label tag and so on.
Yeah.
So it looks much nicer now. Our channel is full of kittens, that's for sure. It's still running. People are enjoying. Yep.
Is that going to the stream, or is that an internal Quix channel?
It's going into one of our internal ones. It's too cute to let go.
Yeah, so we can. We've got a couple of minutes spare. So what I will do is just, if I go to the library item for the Slack notifications, what we can do is basically do a quick demo of that. So if we paste in our webhook again and then click Save as Project this time, we can basically see the code, and I'm being pinged by the sentiment analysis channel, so I'm going to have to mute that. It's too distracting. Where's it gone? find mute. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we have the code here for the Slack notifications, and as you can see, it's basically just forming this Slack message based on the text. Based on the data coming in to the event and parameter data handlers. So if you don't want the entirety of the data coming through, you can modify the code here to pick out one particular field or format it in a way that you want your messages formatted. And then you can save that to your workspace and deploy your own custom version of that code. So yeah, that's what you were talking about before.
Exactly. And one of the beauties of how these sources, transformations, and destinations work together is that Quix is very much advocating for microservice structure. So you don't have a single monolithic application that does everything, including scraping Twitter, processing it with a Hugging Face model, and then sending it to Slack. Instead of, you have these smaller modular components that each do one thing, and that one thing very well. And then if you want to either swap out just that one component, or actually you want to have, instead of one component reading from Twitter, you could deploy any number of other transformations or destinations without modifying the original Twitter source code that is scraping.
Yeah, indeed. I think another thing you could do is actually scale one of the parts of the pipeline, couldn't you? You could, say there was a bottleneck in your transformation in the middle. You could scale that out to, use more resources.
Yes, absolutely. For example, your model was something that ate a bit more resources. I mean, this is already using about 0.2 core out of 0.2 core, so it's about the cap.
Yeah.
But let's say you had some image recognition algorithm there instead of just text processing, then it could very much use a lot of CPU that a single virtual machine simply doesn't have. So you would want to possibly scale it, not just vertically, but horizontally, meaning more replicas. So you have more instances that just share the load, reading from the incoming topic and doing the processing.
Yeah, so that's in your deployment settings, isn't it? Down at the bottom.
At the very bottom.
So we can sort of choose up to, I don't know, can we choose 16 replicas or is there a maximum?
You can choose 16 replicas in this account. I believe the free account comes with either 2 or 4 replicas at maximum by default. But basically, it is, at the end of the day, it is still, well, to a degree, if you're just reading from the topics, it would be limited down to the number of replicas a topic has, because if your topic has, sorry, not replicas, partitions. If your topic has, let's say, 2 partitions, but you have 4 replicas that's trying to read from it, 2 of them would be sitting idle because they have nothing to be assigned to. So it's just, you have to play with how big your topics are, what number of partitions you have, and how many replicas you want to read with.
Okay. And can we alter the number of partitions that a topic has inside the UI here?
So right now, you cannot alter them. When you create them through the API, you can specify them. The UI right now doesn't let you choose it, but on higher tiers, you are automatically given higher number of partitions by default.
I see.
So if your need is a bit more than what the free provides, then there are definitely options out there that we can provide. But it's coming in the future that you will be able to just scale upwards. Sadly, because of how Kafka works internally, you can't really scale the partitions down, just up. But yes, it's absolutely an option.
Awesome. Excellent. Thanks for that. So I think that pretty much brings us to the end of what we had to talk about today, unless you've got anything else you want to add.
No, other than the lineage view looks quite nice because it explains what
does.
exactly we've done today.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's a good screen to end on because you've even got this nifty feature which is showing you kind of a rough idea of how much data is flowing. I've actually stopped the Hugging Face model, so there's no data flowing out of it, but there is data flowing in, or it's flowing out of the Twitter data source. So yeah, it's a really good view to show you that something's happening.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's giving you a nice context of where your model is, what's reading, what's going out, and what is actually consuming the outgoings.
Yeah, indeed.
So I believe that's what we had to show for today. So Steve, thank you
Yep.
for showing the great stuff that the platform provides.
Yeah.
And I will try to answer some of the questions that are left over in the chat. But thank you all for joining, and I hope you join us next time.
Yep. See you next time. Goodbye.